Hello, YouTubers. My name is Cameron. I go by Boblicious on the internet, and today I am speaking into a dirty sock. Now let that just sink in for a second. I'm speaking into a dirty sock. Yes, I am. So I was looking over my last few videos, and I was getting a few recommendations from friends, and myself and my friends included noticed that when I made the P sounds in certain words, my microphone caught my breath. So I was looking around, and a lot of people suggested to use pantyhose. Being a man, however, I unfortunately didn't own a pair of pantyhose. Instead, I took a sock and I wrapped it over a bent clothes hanger in front of my microphone, and I'm really hoping it's going to decrease the sound, the popping from my breath. But in reality, today is not a today I felt like playing day. Today is actually the first day for my new video series that I'm coming out with called Controversial Topic Thursdays. Now, for today's topic, what I'm going to speak about is gun control. If you watched my previous video where I played Killing Floor, I actually talked about how I was going to make this video, and the fact that I'm from South Texas. So, as you can imagine, being from South Texas, I have a lot of strong opinions on this. Gun control is actually something that's very near and dear to my heart. Okay, I shouldn't say gun control. I should say guns are, not really gun control. Um, from the very get-go, really, I've been around guns. I understand now that that's not a very common thing throughout the United States, and I'm not really sure about the rest of the world. Um, but I've always been around guns. I shot my first gun on my own, loaded it, set up the targets, not in that order, went back and shot it when I was 7 years old. It was a little six-shot 22 pistol. And I actually got my first gun from my dad when I was 12. If that kind of gives you any perspective on how the layout in regards to guns and children is in Texas. One thing that is really big to note that not a lot of people really understand is around here, guns aren't killing tools. They're not treated as such because they're not used as such. What they really are is they're a sport tool. Archery, on the other hand, um, I guess it's a little bit more commonly known that archery is used for sport. You take the bow, you shoot the arrow, you try to hit the target, all that great stuff. You can use it for hunting, but not a lot of people do because it puts you at a giant disadvantage for the hunt. Guns around here are actually very much the same. Like I said, I've owned a gun since I was 12. Started shooting when I was 7. I've never actually shot a living thing, although I have to say I have slaughtered my fair share of ceramic targets. So moving on from the point of view being that they're not a killing machine, that is kind of the big thing, the big reason why me personally I don't think gun control should be a big issue, just because I've never been around somebody that I felt that had a gun that I felt threatened by them. Everybody around here kind of seems to know how to handle them, and if they don't, they're willing to listen to you on how to handle it properly. My next note on my handy little notebook here is the fact that self-defense. A lot of people go out and buy guns for self-defense. Me personally, not a big fan of the concept of buying a gun for self-defense. It seems like if the sole purpose of you having the weapon is to defend yourself, you're probably not going to go out on the weekends and shoot it and have fun, which means you're probably going to miss your target, which means you're going to do something that you regret. So buying a gun for the sole purpose of self-defense, I don't think is a very good idea. But beyond that, there is always the fact that if you do have a robber, they're a lot less likely to mug somebody that they know or think might have a gun. Um, in fact, if you want to really play on that point, you don't even need ammo. You just need a gun, or at least to look like you have one. Um, Another really interesting thing that I know it gets pointed out a lot, but it's really kind of a big deal is the fact that when a shooting happens, the gun is what's blamed. I really don't understand that. I guess it comes from the mentality that guns are a killing device, that their only real purpose is to kill things. I suppose that's where this idea comes from. But go back, watch those news reports, read over them, whatever. You'll notice that it is in fact the gun that gets blamed, not the person who killed or did whatever. I think that's kind of weird because if you take that in contrast to say somebody going and stabbing another person with a knife, the knife doesn't get blamed. But what if guns are outlawed? If guns go away, then are knives going to be the next gun? When somebody stabs somebody with a knife, are we going to blame the knife? Are we going to have to get special licenses to own knives in our kitchens? Now, I am kind of going off on a rant here, so I'm going to stop myself before I, make somebody particularly upset. But I'm sure you get my point from here is the fact that everything can be used as a weapon. And that is actually another really big point on my list is the fact that there are so many things that can be used as weapons, that I don't feel like outlawing one of them is really going to help. Because here's kind of how I see it, right? If you put super strict gun control, nobody's allowed to have guns. People are probably going to start using bows. And bows are going to be more generally accepted, I suppose, because they are seen as more of a sport item and less as a killing item. And then eventually you're going to start having people killing with that. You're going to blame the assault on the bow, not the person, much like you did with guns. And then post that, bows will be outlawed, and then I'd imagine it would be something like baseball bats or knives. Okay, and then after that, then what? Feet, fists. Do you see my point here? This is my big concern: is the fact that I don't want. If one has to happen, I suppose. I suppose it's okay, but I would really be concerned for one leading to another. Um, Another really big point. I know this one is also really used a lot in arguments, and I think it's a really valid point. Is the fact that criminals don't follow the law. That's part of their job description, you could say. When they just don't do it. So a lot of people think that it would decrease the killing, but I would be concerned that it would increase it because if less criminals okay, if less civilians have guns and the criminals are still going to have the same amount because they break the law anyway, wouldn't that make the problem worse? I mean, a 30-minute response time from your local police, I'd be I'd much rather defend myself because I don't feel like I should have to wait 30 minutes for a police officer to come out and mediate my issue. I want to take care of it. I don't want anybody else getting hurt. But back onto the point of criminals, they don't follow laws, right? What's really interesting is a lot of those criminals that have these guns that do these killings, they've been to prison before for a felony. Um, by that standard, they can't have a gun anyway. They can't buy one. So how do they get one? Well, they got it illegally. That's how they got it. So outlawing them, I don't think would really help. It's they're gonna find a way, right? Everybody that really needed one would probably find a way. They would do it. Um, Now I want to take a step back here for just a second and make note of one small little factor, and that is I'm not opposed to background checks or the check for mental stability. That's not what I'm here to argue. I'm here to argue the prospect that some people think guns should be outlawed entirely. Um, Now I don't mind that because if a person is mentally unstable in that condition, they can have severe mood swings, and then that could lead to an issue. Um, yeah, you can see where this is going. I mean, you get the point, I'm sure. Another thing really that I see thrown around a lot. it seems to be a fairly popular argument in those of favor in, well, getting rid of guns or very very strict controlling them, is they always pull up these charts that show that America. I know I'm speaking about America, but I live in America. That's part of it. I live here. We're number one in handgun kills between civilians. Um, this is a really interesting thing because if you've ever taken a statistics class or you really looked into statistics, you would notice that you can make a statistic to say just about whatever you want, just by messing with little finite words that most people would miss. In these studies where America is number one in handgun kills, please note that I'm not saying gun kills. I'm actually saying handgun kills. Now, why is that different? Well, owning a rifle or owning a handgun in America, you can do both of those, right? Handguns are a little bit stricter because they're easier to conceal, all that fun stuff, but you can own both. A lot of other countries, you can't. You don't get that right to own a handgun. So, why is America number one or one of the highest places for handgun kills? Because we allow citizens to own handguns. You see? So the numbers that are coming from these other countries are people that are breaking laws to own these handguns. So it's just criminals. All right, onto my future, onto just a little bit more onto that point is the fact that if you actually go and you look up the number of kills of just gun kills from country to country, America's no longer number one, number two. I haven't looked at a particularly recent viewing of that, but I do know that we're much lower on the list than top three. So it just goes to show that when you're reading these statistics and you're looking at them and you're analyzing them, you have to go more than what you see. There's a lot of little things that are done, little tweaks to kind of mess with what you see. Another issue that I have with these gun control arguments is the emotion that's put behind it. Um, it's I almost feel bad for saying this, and you'll see why here in a second. But the reality is that gun control has the emotional win, right? If a mother goes up on stage and says, "My son was shot," and then somebody else goes up on stage and says, "I've had guns my whole life. I've never shot anyone," who is the crowd really going to feel for? Well, they're going to feel for the mother. It's human nature. So they play upon that. That's why gun control seems to have this big emotional advantage, and I don't like that. I don't like the fact that because one side of the argument has been worse off, the argument is now skewed in their favor. That doesn't really seem like it would make for a fair argument. I mean, just think about it for a second. You're you're more or less making a decision that will affect millions of people that own these guns based upon a few human lives. And this is the part that I don't really like to say it, because not because I feel bad for saying it, because I'm sure this is going to offend a lot of people, but the reality is that we as a species put way too much value on one human life. We just we care too much about individual lives to see the overlying factors if you get what I'm saying. It's you have to really look at it from a perspective of what benefits the many versus what benefits the very loud few. And what I feel would benefit the many would be gun control, yes, but not super strict. Um, like I said, I would like there to be some kind of control. There does need to be some sort of regulations on it. You can't just, I don't want to be able to just go into a store and buy a gun, but I don't think that people should be barred from having a gun because this loud minority who's upset about something doesn't feel like you should deserve it. I mean, it doesn't seem like a proper means of arguing a fact. With all this said, I've gotten my points across. That's the end of my little rant, my discussion, my opinion. Please feel free in the comments, and when I say feel free, I mean I really want somebody, at least somebody, who really disagrees with how I feel to say something. Let me know, what did I say that you didn't like? What why don't you like that? What about it is wrong? Give me details. I don't really want personal stories. If you watched the video before this one, you'll know don't want personal stories, don't want flame wars, don't want personal attacks. But I am curious as to what you disagreed with and why, because I want to get a broader range of opinions. I want to know what these people that I have no understanding of think and why they think that way. Anyway, for the terms of Controversial Topic Thursday, that's pretty much it, guys. Y'all have a wonderful day. I will upload another video tomorrow. It'll be another Today I Felt Like Playing. Goodbye.